Elspeth Spindle has a voice inside her head. Not a phantasm, not a trick, but a cunning creature. And though it might not be malevolent, it sure as hell isn't merciful. In Rachel Gillig's One Dark Window, Miss chokes the kingdom, magic is a curse, and caught between saving her home and saving herself, Elspeth is forced to ask, what if I have no choice but to let go? Today, let's once again explore how stories are a mirror to our lives, and see how One Dark Window reflects our inner shadows, the inevitable corruption of unchecked power, and a romance that feels earned. We'll take a look at how this book made me confront one of my own shadows. I'm your host, Jonathan Scanlon, and this is episode 4 of Read, Reflect, Repeat. This was another book I almost didn't read. While filling my cart with all the Murderbot books, Amazon just had to recommend some more titles. I was about to skip and continue to checkout, but I had some leftover money on my gift card. Besides, I really needed to branch out from the sci-fi binge I was on. So I decided to trust the algorithm and blindly added it to my cart. Now, I don't know if the algorithm was actually playing 4D chess or simply using the push a bestseller and pray strategy, but either way, it lucked out. When I finished the final page, I begrudgingly opened the app and rewarded the algorithm with what it wanted most. Me buying book 2. I had to know what happens, okay? Now I should note, I've been a long-time lover of fantasy. Lord of the Rings, obviously, Redwall when I was young, and more recently The Witcher. But One Dark Window took a bit of an adjustment. The Gothic and dark elements didn't really resonate with me right away, and her writing style seemingly grated on me. Which was strange, because it's not like she was using an extremely jarring style. Once the first signs of romance began to creep in, I really felt myself pulling back. Just what the hell was going on? I realized I was being ridiculous and pushed through, but my hesitancy really bugged me. I'm pretty sure I figured out why I initially struggled, but we'll get to that later. First, let's discuss the ideas from One Dark Window that resonated with me. Let's rip this band-aid off right away. We all have things we hide. Parts of ourselves we shy away from, or may even lock in the quiet corners of our minds. This is our first resonant idea, inner shadows. For Elspeth, this is not metaphorical. She not only lives in a world where magic is a curse, punishable by death, but she actually has a dark apparition coiled inside her mind, the nightmare. Remember, in this story, the creature is real. It's not a trick of trauma or ramification of stress. It has perspectives, ambitions, and hatred. To me, it feels like the nightmare is the pinnacle of intrusive thoughts. Though Elspeth's shadow is literal, it still mirrors something very human. We all carry uninvited thoughts we didn't choose, wrestling with things like insecurity, loneliness, anger, resentment, shame, fear, jealousy. Things we'd rather not admit, not even to ourselves. Now, some of these things we're rightfully ashamed of. No one's perfect, but usually we just think others will misunderstand, or they just won't get it. This isn't the first time we've explored this idea, the mask we put up between who we are and what we show. In Just Who Will You Be, we talked about the masks we wear to perform and conform to the ideas we think other people hold important. And in All Systems Red, Murderbot uses a face shield, a firewall masking his emotional vulnerability to humans trying to connect with him. While those masks are social-emotional and, in Murderbot's case, literal, One Dark Window goes even deeper. It's not just about hiding from others, it's about hiding from yourself. From the parts of you you're ashamed of, or scare you. I think Elspeth's and the Nightmare's relationship exemplifies the poetic Jungian idea of persona versus shadow. Because, seriously, it's just too fitting. Remember, though, I'm not a psychologist, and it is a metaphor. But the persona is our practice self, our baseline personality. It's the one we present the majority of the time, and it's a polished state. The shadow is far more interesting. Here's an excerpt from Jung's essay, The Structure of the Unconscious, on our shadow side. Quote, "These occur only when we cannot see the other side of our nature and the urgency of its problems. Only under these conditions does the symptom appear, and it helps to give expression to the unrecognized side of the psyche. The symptom is therefore, in Freud's view, the fulfillment of unrecognized desires which, when conscious, come into violent conflict with our moral convictions. As already observed, this shadow side of the psyche, being withdrawn from conscious scrutiny, cannot be dealt with by the patient. He cannot correct it, cannot come to terms with it, nor yet disregard it. For in reality, he does not possess the unconscious impulses at all. There are patients who boast that for them the shadow side does not exist. They assure us that they have no conflict, but they do not see that other things of unknown origin cumber their path. Hysterical moods, underhanded tricks which they play on themselves and their neighbors, a nervous karoth of the stomach, pains in various places, irritability for no reason, and a whole host of nervous symptoms." That was a lot. But to sum up this passage, Jung is essentially saying, when we ignore the disowned side of ourselves, it forces its way out as symptoms. Those symptoms are repressed desires that clash with our morals because they're unconscious. They act on their own and can't be managed until analysis brings them back under conscious control. And people who insist that they have no shadow still show it indirectly through things like mood swings, self-sabotage, irritability, and other psychosomatic ailments. This is proof that denied conflicts leak out as nervous symptoms. I'll take this a step further. I believe that when we are under significant duress from fatigue or stress, this shadow side can erupt forth. These are the moments where we have a hard time looking ourselves in the mirror the next day. The moments where we may readily abandon one of our core ideas or principles. The moment where we tell others, or even ourselves, what I did, that wasn't me. You know me. But it is us. Though it's not the us we choose. We shouldn't shame that version of who we are because it's unavoidable. And again, it's in all of us. I agree with Jung that we cannot disregard our shadow. But he also says that we cannot correct it and cannot come to terms with it. I'll be idealistic and respectfully disagree. I believe that we have to acknowledge it and we should try to tame it. That way, when the moment is upon us, it acts more like a gremlin and not a nightmare. Now let's move on to our next resonant idea, the inevitable corruption of unchecked power. Blender has been ruled by the line of Rowan for 500 years of unbroken, brutal subjugation. While we don't yet know how the Rowans came to power, their philosophy has remained unchanged. Those with magic must be purged. Families live in fear that the ones they love will succumb to the fever and emerge cursed with magic. Their magic is unpredictable and can't easily be controlled by the Rowans. But the Providence cards, this world's other form of magic, are the Rowans' favorite tools. They can be very easily carried, and their powers are well known. Absolutely perfect for a line of rulers obsessed with control. The Rowans have hunted down and hoarded most of them, giving the monarchy tremendous power over the population. At the time of our story, King Quartius and Prince Hoth continue the reign of terror. Their favorite card, the Scythe, allows them to force anyone to obey their commands. They use its power to compel citizens to perform barbaric acts on themselves or others. Now, not all of Rowan is rotten, though. Prince Renelm sees his family for what they are, tyrants, and wishes nothing to do with them. But even he is addicted to the comfort brought by the power of the Scythe. It's easy to write off rulers like Corsius and Hoth as pure villains, and there's no ambiguity. They are villains. But real-world power doesn't always look like vicious self-indulgence. Sometimes it's just slow moral drift. This is something I was reminded of in a most unexpected interview in the video Why War Doesn't Work with General Stanley McChrystal. Hassan Minhaj speaks with the former Army 4-star general. It's a really interesting watch. And they take a bit of time to talk about wielding power. McChrystal says something that really stuck with me. Quote, anyone put in a very powerful position is going to try and pull together more power, gather more power. Let's be honest. If you made me president for life tomorrow, I would start off and I'd be a great guy. And I'll bet in a couple years, you wouldn't want to have me on your show. I mean, that's me, and I think I'm probably average. As a 4-star general, McChrystal wielded tremendous military might. And yet, he has the awareness and honesty to admit if given unrestricted authority, he'd start with good intentions, but the power would ultimately consume him. And to me, it seems like he doesn't view this as a personal flaw. I mean, he thinks he's average. So, unchecked power is dangerous not because some people are evil, but because most people are human. King Corsius, in particular, feels righteous in his convictions, but he's a hypocrite of the highest order, wielding his power without fear of retribution. He has no trouble executing children and the family members that try to protect them. Yet he turns a blind eye when magic roots itself within his own family tree. I think we all believe that in his place, we would be good and righteous. But with so much unchecked power in our hands, would we? Now let's move on to our final resonant idea. And I'm going to call it connection, not convenience. So first, let's define exactly what I mean when I say connection, not convenience. It's the idea that the romance in this story is not simply there to add drama or quench a thirst. It operates more like a side narrative that organically grows like we'd expect in real life. I think it all starts with how well Gillig crafts her characters. They come across as real and relatable. They have individual ambitions and are often grappling with their own internal conflicts and personal growth. This not only allows the central characters' journeys to resonate, but also provides a supporting cast that doesn't fall flat. They have meaning within the story, and they aren't merely plot wallpaper. Their family loyalties and court ties carry costs. Now, the spark is nothing original, but let's be honest. There are very few relationships without that initial attraction. When Elspeth and Raven meet, it's easy to see why two young people would be drawn to each other. I mean, going through the Tinder dating profile checklist, it's easy to see. For Raven's checklist, we've got, is she hot? Very. Check. And moving on to Elspeth's checklist, we've got, is he 6 feet? Yes, check. Does he make 6 figures? Well, he owns a castle, so check. Is he 6? Well, I'll have to leave that to your imagination. All joking aside, though, Elspeth shows him her moral backbone, courage under pressure, loyalty, truthfulness, kindness, resilience, shared mission, and vulnerability. And Raven meets her with cool competence, respect for boundaries, protection without smothering, power with restraint, reliability, patience. He honors his promises and tells the hard truths. I think it's a good reminder that in the real world, most meaningful relationships are built slowly. Sure, the honeymoon phase has its fireworks, but deep connection tends to grow through respect, friction, and the ability to meet the other person where they are. Real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, tap like or leave a star. It really helps others find the show. And if you're feeling generous, share it with a friend who loves Gothic fantasy, romance, or both. All right, let's get back to it. Here's a riddle. A father is bringing his son to a job interview, applying for a position at a large stockbroker's company in the city. Just as they arrive at the company's parking lot, the son's phone rings. He looks at his father, who says, "Go ahead, answer it." The caller is the trading company CEO, who says, "Good luck, son. You've got this." The son ends the call and once again looks at his father, who is still next to him in their car. How is this possible? Go ahead and pause if you want to think on this for a bit. Now, some of you had heard this riddle before and already know the answer. Some of you may be hearing this for the first time and answered correctly. But for those of you who are still stumped, don't feel bad. According to the numbers, most of you won't know or get the right answer. And that's okay. All right. I won't leave you in suspense any longer. The CEO is the boy's mother. This riddle is from a video by Mindspace titled International Women's Day. Can you solve the riddle? I'm not going to tell you what happens in the rest of the video because, yes, it is another video you should most definitely go view. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm giving you homework with all the videos I tell you should go watch, but this one's very short and very powerful. Plus, I get excited about sharing these kinds of things. Anyway, this is a simple exercise used to reveal implicit bias, especially around gender roles and professional assumptions. And implicit bias impacts all of us. But what exactly is implicit bias? Well, according to the American Psychological Association, quote, implicit bias, also known as implicit prejudice or implicit attitude, is a negative attitude of which one is not consciously aware against a specific social group. Implicit bias is thought to be shaped by experience and based on learned associations between particular qualities and social categories, including race and/or gender. Individuals' perceptions and behaviors can be influenced by the implicit biases they hold, even if they are unaware they hold such biases. Implicit bias is an aspect of implicit social cognition, the phenomenon that perceptions, attitudes, and stereotypes can operate prior to conscious intention or endorsement. Harvard's Project Implicit reinforces this, saying, quote, these biases can influence actions and decisions without people being aware. I want to stress, implicit bias is not a conscious choice. It is a result of our environment and experiences shaping our unconscious thoughts. They're not biases we take positions on, like all lawyers are evil, or vanilla is actually the goat, which it is. See, our brains evolved to be hyper-efficient, sometimes to a fault. They developed shortcuts, allowing us to respond before having all the information. These evolutionary shortcuts helped our ancestors stay alive, but in today's modern era, it can have some unwanted drawbacks. Okay, so let's drive this home with one more example. Picture a man, tall, muscular, handsome, sharply groomed, and wearing a suit. Now, picture a woman, average height, thin, short dyed hair, covered in tattoos, wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Did you imagine the man being a chauffeur? Did you imagine the woman being a professor of physics? Many times, with even a split second of extra thought, we quickly overcome our implicit biases. But we actually have to think for a moment before that can happen. If not, our implicit biases will just sit there until they're evicted. Let's now get to why I'm talking about this. As someone building a channel with a core belief on reflection, I thought it was important to first be honest with myself and then share that honesty with you. Here's the thing. Remember earlier when I said, I think I figured out why I pushed back so much at first? Well, I think it just has to be my implicit bias. Earlier, I mentioned being a fan of Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. They have romance, and I didn't bat an eye. They were also written by men. Now, when it comes to One Dark Window, I realized I was being ridiculous. My experience from previous books has taught me my initial reaction is not always valid, and I need to give things adequate time to prove themselves before I make a real judgment. By pushing through, I was rewarded with an exciting story and a compelling romance. Fittingly, this implicit bias is one of my own shadows. And I have to admit, when I realized this was the case, I was embarrassed. I believed myself egalitarian and meritocratic. And despite overcoming my initial reservations, I had still been unfairly critical for an objectively dumb reason. I made the claim earlier that we must confront our shadow selves, so when it emerges, it doesn't wreak havoc. And I have to hold myself to my own standard. So I tried to address my own implicit biases. I took some of Harvard's Project Implicit tests, and the results were quite surprising. I learned a lot about the parts of myself that lurk in the corners of my mind. It wasn't what I wanted to see, but it is what I needed to see. Now, unfortunately, there's no way, at least that I could find, to purge implicit biases. They're too tightly coupled with the primitive parts of our shortcut-loving brains. But knowing what they are gives us the power to overcome them when they do pop up. Our unconscious brain is our monkey brain, and it doesn't define us. Now, I'm someone that likes to try and expand the horizons, and I've become determined to try more books from more genres. Several weeks after my pleasant experience with One Dark Window, my wife recommended I read Emily Henry's romance novel, People We Meet on Vacation. Now, I know that I naturally project an overwhelmingly potent aura of handsomeness and ruggedness. But don't let your implicit biases deceive you. I thought it was fantastic. So I'll be covering it in my next episode. And I've also decided, despite more initial reservations, that I'll read Fourth Wing and A Court of Thorns and Roses. At some point. And who knows, maybe they'll make my cheeks flush and my pants tighten. They might just be my next guilty pleasure. If these sounds like episodes you'd be interested in, take one last opportunity to double check and make sure you're subscribed or following so you don't miss them when they drop. Now, I want to know from you. Have you ever had a reaction to a book, movie, or character that surprised you? Did it make you recognize any of your own biases or blind spots? Or maybe you can tell me about a story you nearly passed on but ended up loving. What made you give it a chance? For this episode, I've linked all sources, so if you're feeling inquisitive, go check them out. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for being here, especially those of you who made it to the very end. Until next time, read for joy,